मुझे बताया गया है कि you are a man because we are women, and I would like to agree to that. But there are many stories. One of them that happened in my acquaintance and family. I can name him. He still lives in my heart. This was about 20 years ago. Of course, I was very, very young at that time. And अद्भुत असाधारण सच लगता है कि ऊपर वाला जो है वो है या नहीं है. 3 करोड़ में से 5% निकाल दें तो बाकी लोग अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकते, like him. And we as Indians, ladies and gentlemen, need to stand up for them to make their lives better. And that is how Kalam Sahab, jahan bhi hain, I'm a great fan, met him on stage several times. He always used to say, if we do not contribute to the society, we are not citizens of the country. Ladies and gentlemen, for one of the finalists level, and he happens to be the managing trustee of Sai Aasra. Speaks volumes about his greatness. Humane, highly evolved person, spiritual. Ladies and gentlemen, with a big heart, I would like to welcome him up.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think this has been a very, very humbling evening for me personally, and I'm sure for each one of you who's actually sitting here, to have listened to Manoj, to have listened to Daljit, to have seen the fabulous video, to have heard Nikki, talk about what inspired her to get onto this path. In some ways, it forces us, all of us, at least me, to question my very existence, that what the hell am I actually doing with my life? I'm not sure whether it's happening to some of you, it's certainly happening to me. And I'd like to start off by sharing 3 mini stories, partly triggered off by Pallav. Pallav Bose is a fabulous MC, one of the best I've ever seen actually, or heard. And I think he triggered off some thoughts. First was very clearly that I used to have a teacher in school. He was a Hindi teacher, Mr. Raj, right from I think class 8 till class 11. At that time, he used to pass out in class 11. He used to tell us almost every week. He says, all of you, you're very, very fortunate. You're coming from fantastic families. You're coming to the best schools. आप कुछ महीनों में 5-6 महीने में 2 जगह जरूर जाया करो. एक आपको जाना चाहिए अस्पताल, contrary to what you were told. And second, दूसरी जगह आपको जाना चाहिए शमशान भूमि में. क्योंकि जब आप अस्पताल जाते हैं, आप देखते हैं कि there are people who are lying sick, who are fighting disease, fighting accidents, waiting to be cured, and whether they're going to make it or not, you don't know. And you must reflect that this is something that can happen to me as well. And therefore, you must thank God for what you have. Shukrana is what Prajit reminded us all about. That always be grateful for what you have. But remind yourself, exercise humility in your daily life when you see how people can actually suffer being inside hospitals, and how very eminent doctors are trying to help them get back to normal life. And the second is that when you go to the Shamshan Ghat, recognize that's where all of us are going to end up one fine day. And therefore, in your perspective about life, in your ways, remember that your existing state of greatness, your existing state of ego, your existing state of wealth, all that is going to go away into the wind, and you're going to actually end up there. And if that's what your last destination is, then how do you want your life to run? It's food for thought. And I remember, and this teacher, by the way, I get a call from him once in every 6 weeks, 6 weeks to 2 months. He stays in New Jersey. He's about 8 years old. And he'll always speak to me and find out. He says, Daljit, aapka kya haal chal hai? Are you spending time thinking about God? Are you reflecting that? Beta, Bhagwan ko kabhi mat bhulna. And he says nice things. He talks about my welfare. Makes me feel immensely grateful. Very, very privileged. I have a 97-year-old father who stays with me. who looks after me. We have a fantastic relationship, and I have a second father who's 8,000 miles away, who's also very concerned about me. So that's one. The second part that I actually want to share is a video that I saw many years ago. And this is about, the scene on the video is about a person who's narrating the incident in first person. And early morning, when it's still not yet dawn, he walks towards the beach. And he sees another human being, a person who is doing some form of a dance by the beach side. And this fellow is bending down, and then he gets up in a very graceful movement. He swings his arm towards the sea. And he's very curious. He says, who the hell is this at 5 in the morning when it's still very dark? So he goes closer, and he says that it's a young person who bends down and who's picking up starfish from the beach, and he's throwing the starfish into the sea. And he says that I looked left and I looked right, and for as far as I could see in both directions, the beach was littered with starfish that had actually been washed onto the shore. And I was wondering, what the hell is this fellow doing? So I went up to him and I said, pardon me, sir, but what are you doing? He says, well, I'm just trying to, rescue some of these starfish and put them back into the water so that they can live. So he says, when I says, but there are thousands of starfish, what difference are you actually making? So he says, he simply looked at me curiously. He bent down, picked up a starfish, and threw it in the water. And he looked at me again and said, it made a difference to that starfish. So the point, very, 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 very powerful statement. And the third thing that I want to share with you is something that I heard from a very, very wise person. He says that, we look at the caste system actually was not meant to be in this manner. The caste system is meant to represent the state of evolution of human beings. So he says the level 1, which is at the basis level, you call Shudra, and we have given it a separate meaning to it. He says it's a state of life, a state of evolution, when a person is living purely by animal instinct. It's only for my own survival and for my own welfare that I live this life. That's a level 1 stage of life. So call it the lowest caste, if you like. The second stage is when I not only think about myself, but I start thinking about the small ecosystem around me, my wife, my children. So my horizon moves a little wider beyond myself to include the welfare of people around me. The third level of evolution is when I not only think about myself, my family, but I begin to think about society. That, look, I live in this ecosystem, a supportive ecosystem. How do I actually contribute to the welfare of the society? I spend maybe 90% of my time here, but perhaps 10, 20% of the time I need to spend doing something to improve the environment. I genuinely begin to live life absolutely beyond myself. When I live this life for the world around me, for the environment, for the people outside my own sphere, and no action, no intent of mine is determined by any selfish motive. And that's the highest level of actualization that all of us need to move towards in this journey called life. And when we begin to examine this question of what is life all about, it's a fantastic construct to think about where we are in this journey called life. So these 3 incidents I thought it important to share with you because it's very, very, very topical in the context of whatever we've spoken. Let me now get to the subject matter today. Why is it that we have gathered here? What is this concept of Sai Aasra? Why Sai Aasra at all? I think Nikki has spoken very beautifully about what inspired her. And I think it's important for us to realize because, 20 years, 30, 50 years from now, when we talk about Sai Aasra, this will be the single most important trigger that Nikki spoke about, that Manoj spoke about. That it is that we want to create an ecosystem in this country which will look after people for whom no such ecosystem actually exists. And it came as a big surprise to me. I run a very large hospital system, but when we begin to look at, when we begin to isolate and begin to look at what we do for specific categories of people, it's pretty shocking that we actually don't have a dedicated center for such large number of people who are suffering from this debilitating problem in the entire country, that we actually don't have an ecosystem of support, care, and rehabilitation. So the why of this entire movement is for all of us to think about that higher purpose. That higher purpose being, can we begin to think beyond ourselves? All of us, we are very fortunate. We are amongst the most privileged people in this entire country. We come from, we have great jobs, we are financially very stable. All of us have much more than what we need. But largely, many of us, I guess, have been probably focusing a lot more on ourselves rather than on the world outside us. And I think I would beg you, I would ask you to think about this entire proposition. That the proposition that has been put forward in front of us is that we want to create this rehabilitation center which will bring dignity, which will bring care, which will bring support to the lives of people, which will bring attention and will begin to rehabilitate them, to produce the Gajendrans of this world, and make it worthwhile, make life's journey for us worthful. That's really the reason why all of us need to actually sign on to this mission and perhaps enlist the support of many people around it. Let's move on to what is proposed to be done. So we've had several brainstorming sessions amongst ourselves with subject matter experts, people like Manoj, Daljit, and others, as well as people like us who are normal citizens, let's say that. And we have now come to a conclusion that we are going to make a big start, and the start has actually happened with the support of many, many people. I think you mentioned about the alchemist, and there's a beautiful phrase there that he says, if you desperately want to do something in this world, something which is really beyond yourself, then the entire universe conspires to help you succeed. I think it's a fabulous, the purpose is very noble. When the purpose is beyond the self-interest, then everybody in this universe, the whole universe, will make things happen for you. And that's really what we've actually been seeing happening in this journey, which has been, I think, around for the last 6 to 8 months. When Nikki first spoke to me about her vision, I thought it was a pretty harebrained idea, frankly. I didn't tell her this. I said, she's a bit crazy if she thinks she wants to set up such a big thing. But anyway, let's go along and see what happens. But today, when we see where we've actually arrived, I think it's a very, very humbling thought, because all of what has happened has not happened just because 3, 4, 5, 6, or a dozen of people were there. It's happened by many people, and many people who are actually sitting in this audience, and many who are not part of this audience. And things simply began to happen. Doors simply began to open. Paths began to emerge where there was actually no path. And today we are at a situation where, in terms of what we seek to do, is setting up a rehabilitation center in Sector 28, opposite the... Okay? And we've been very fortunate to get a fantastic location with a big hall with chambers, with a rehabilitation center which can accommodate 18 people can actually live there. 18 paraplegics can actually live there in surroundings. I can tell you that, because the beautiful greenery, the beautiful lawns, and the quality of construction that has actually been created there is absolutely fantastic. And this place is going to serve as a launch pad for Sai Aasra. It's going to be ready, I think, in the next 3 months or so, and you're going to hear more about it. But the great part of this is that it's, for the first time, that a comprehensive center with an entire support ecosystem, with doctors, with physiotherapists, with recreational facilities, and including, Prabjit, your very last point that you made, that spirituality must be brought into it. I think we are very, very fortunate that there is a group there which focuses on Gurbani, which focuses on teaching Kirtan, and there's a langar served there every evening. So it's a beautifully beautiful environment which will actually nurture people not only from a spiritual sustenance point of view, but everything else. I think the model of Sai Aasra that we are looking at it's an NGO. It'll be a for charity organization. But in this for charity organization, there are going to be two parts. There's one part which is going to be based upon payment. So if people who come in from good financial backgrounds and who are able to pay for services, they will be charged. But people who can't afford these services, they will be served totally free of charge. So there will be cross-subsidy which will actually happen. This center is actually going to hopefully develop a revenue model. So there will be a vocational training institute for people who can actually specialize in looking after those who are suffering from paraplegia. So there's a great model that is working around it, and it's something that will be perhaps the first of its kind in our country, and a great showpiece for what can actually happen when many hands get together to create a miracle. And I think that's fantastic. Long term, certainly, we still have big, hairy, audacious goals. And the way this entire movement is actually going forward, I have little doubt that we will see that dream also come true. And the last point that I want to mention in this is that we are very, very clear that this entire group that we are working on, that the governance standards must stand the scrutiny of total transparency. So all expenditures, all incomes, all donations that actually come into this cause will be monitored, will be audited, will be available to anybody who actually wants to see how money is actually being spent. And we'll be very, very happy to open up the books as and when it's required to be done, because that is something that we believe is absolutely important for an institution like this if it needs to create credibility. And I think that this is it's a great, great cause. And today, as we move back out of this room, I think we ought to sign in at least to this cause for lifetime. Pallav signed on to that with Nikki and all the others who signed on to it. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this great journey. This is the first step that we are taking on this journey. It is a cause worthwhile moving into. It is a cause which takes us into that fourth domain of being human, which is truly beginning to work in a domain where there is absolutely no self-interest. It is absolutely guaranteed to give each one of us deep satisfaction, even if we are able to make a difference to that single paraplegic. It doesn't matter, we probably may not be able to crack the problem of 3 crore people, but we will be fire starters. We will start a movement, and hopefully there'll be multiple Nikkis who will sprout out in the remaining part of the country, and this area is going to be cracked. So please join us and be on this journey. You must all feel extremely proud that you are part of a moment that will be etched in the history of Sai Aasra. So thank you very much for coming and contributing to this great event.
Thank you very much. All of us have a lot of fathers and mothers that have made us what we are today. Just one very small clarification, otherwise my image building will obviously go to the drains. What my father at home had said that if you are lucky if you don't visit the hospital, I forgot to add as a patient. That's just that's all pledge from our hearts, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe this Saturday evening, which is going to be, Saturday evenings are evenings for years for entertainment and having fun and socializing. How about an evening of networking, talking about big hearts and contributing? Please do that. And I think we are all privileged as human beings to get this opportunity to be a part of this wonderful journey.